Hello Nigeria, welcome to Nigeria Now on Echo Television International, your winning station where we keep you updated with things that are happening currently in Nigeria. I am Stella Elisha Dasha. We're live at Facebook and on YouTube. You can follow us live there. Drop your comment on any of the story that we will be discussing together that you think is relevant to you and how we can also provide solution, if possible, to some of these things. I will be doing the program alongside Rachel Tanzay. Good afternoon, Rachel. How is the day going so far?
Fine so far.
You know, the weather quite to be so dry and then it has a way of affecting people. But then we'll find a way of beating around with all of the things that are happening.
Also a time to be
All right,
careful.
we shall be rolling on some of the, talking about the stories and some of the issues that we think it's important that we bring to the table and then we discuss it. So hope you join us through our social media handle. And we'll be starting with the story of Tinubu. Yesterday, we will record that the president launched a conditional cash transfer scheme for about 15 million households who will be collecting 25,000 naira for the next 3 months. That is to say, they will be having 75,000 naira, and that is actually to target the vulnerable and also the internet displaced people. Now, Rachel, looking at the scheme, we will record that the first press release we had from the president, especially after the removal of the fuel subsidy, he mentioned some of the initiatives he will be taking to be able to cater for Nigerians, kind of a way of providing maybe a safety way of them not really feeling so much of the impact. We will record that Labour threatened to go on strike because some of the palliative did not come on time. We will record the first time was 8,000 naira will be given to some household, and then a lot of Nigerians kick against it, and then the president said he will set up a committee to review the money. And then yesterday he actually launched the scheme where about 50 million households have been targeted to collect this 25,000 naira for the next 3 months. Of course, we had representative even from the World Bank saying that this is a very great initiative because it is recognized globally. I mean, when there is a need to actually come to the aid of Nigerians, it is important that we see all of these things being given. And beyond any other thing, we'll see yesterday we were looking at the International Day for Eradication of Poverty, and the day before we also saw the International Day for Food, which they have a program that will be running through till Friday. Now, looking at the reason why the government gave this, it's more like targeting even that day, which is talking about yesterday, where they said they are looking at how people can get decent jobs and also to have social protection. That's talking about medium enterprises, also talking about MNS, and then many other people who actually need this money to actually keep running now. I would like to have your thoughts about this particular scheme, what you feel about this step that the president have taken, and there are other initiatives that they said will roll out, talking about maybe safe home for people who are in internal displaced people, and then quite a number of also, you know, money here and there support that will be coming eventually, so they can see how they can reduce the number of these people to at least, let's see, about 61 or 62 million Nigerians will be lifted from poverty. So I would like to have your thought on this.
I mean, Salah, like the Nigerian government knows for sure that this cannot uplift people from poverty. A matter of fact, 25,000 has no power to reduce the pain of the hardship that people are feeling. I believe what this is just the government of Nigeria proving to Nigerians that they do have us in mind and that they will do what in their power they can do to just help Nigerians come through. But we know that for sure 25,000 naira is in no way going to help with poverty. We know exactly what is needed to be done concerning poverty in the country. We analyzed that yesterday when we talked about the World Poverty Day and how many people are in poverty, and then what Nigeria needs to do to take people out of poverty. And we know for sure empowerment is not going to take anybody out of poverty. Palliative is not going to take anybody out of poverty. Relief funds, materials, grants, and all of that won't take anybody out of poverty. And the same way we are seeing the president talking about going further to help farmers the next farming season, and also to give trading money that would be bigger, more than the previous 10,000 that was given by the past administration. We're seeing this current administration saying that the money is going to be much. They're looking at about 50,000 naira. And then the truth is, what Nigerians need when we talk about traders is not 50,000 naira, because it's not even enough fund to keep any business afloat. And secondly, is fertilizers are also not enough funds, enough anything to keep farmers' heads afloat. These are not the things that they need. We need permanent things put in place that whether the government intervene or not, we will be able to see growth by itself going on in the country. So I believe that the government know all of these. However, this is their move to avert NLC from going on strike, because whether we like it or not, this 25,000 was one of the agreement they have, the memorandum of understanding they had with the labor. Because at the beginning, Sele, just as you said, it was first 8,000, and of course, everybody, organized labor said it's unacceptable for households, and we are looking at an average of 5 people in a Nigerian household. Is few households you will see just 4 people, but if we're realistic, is above 4 for a regular household, apart from dependent relatives, apart from our birth rates and all of that. We're looking at a household of at least average of 5 people, and we're like 8,000 is unacceptable. And I believe that this is the outcome of the review. Now, let's not forget that on the 2nd of October, we have organized labor giving the federal government a 30 days ultimatum also for them to start implementing some of the things they have agreed on. So I believe this is just one move of the government to tell organized labor that we don't want you to go on strike. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I believe me when I said the Nigerian government knows this is in no way going to help poverty at all. And it's just for a period of 6 months. If we're looking, 3 months, if we're looking at, exactly, if we're looking at a year, then we could applaud it as a better scheme. But this is definitely not poverty alleviation in any way. Now, for me, the question is this, because we need to keep track on the government. How long do you plan on disbursing these funds? We're talking about 15 million households. And this is where, for me, we will watch and see for how long will it take the federal government of Nigeria to make sure that every month, without faltering, that we have 15 million households getting 25,000 naira every month for the next 3 months. Now, it's not just for you to do a grand ceremony, invite international bodies, because we had World Bank representatives, directors of country, we have from the IMF, we have people, dignitaries grazing this opening, launching yesterday. Is not just enough for that. Is how is your consistency, because we know you're trying to avert organized labor from going that. There's nothing wrong with that, but then we're waiting to see how long will it take. We did yesterday for the whole 15 million households to get for the month of October, and then we will watch for November, and then we will see for December. Then this is when I will truly know that it's not just a show off by the Nigerian government, but truly that they are trying their best by every possible means to reduce the hardship of Nigerians, no matter how little it is, but there is some kind of effort that is significant.
Rachel, for me, aside the money that they will be given, and aside talking about the cheap shelter or actually accommodative shelter they will be providing, they're also looking at rolling out vocational skill for people. And for me, I think that is more welcome, because if you are actually going to empower Nigerians by providing them with certain skills that they can learn, and then they have all that is needed. Now, beyond that, we're seeing that manufacturers also complaining, so that is my concern. So after having the skill, after knowing what to do, is the environment conducive enough for my business to thrive eventually? Because we're seeing that over the period from the removal of the fuel subsidy, a lot of small businesses are closing down. A lot of people are unemployed. A lot of people are laying off staff. So I hope that after this initiative, just like you said, we will be keeping a tap on them to be sure that this money is coming as it should be. And we are hoping that Nigerians that actually benefit from this should call us back, drop the comment on our Facebook, so that we can also applaud the government. Let it not be like we are always here telling the government to do this, and then when they did it or when eventually they have done it, will not come out to tell them thank you or appreciate them, even though, I mean, it's just part of their responsibility to take care of their citizens. So whether a thank you or not, I believe that they will do the right thing. Now, still looking at keeping a tap on the government and doing what is expected of them to do. We're seeing the Senate is actually urging the federal government to declare emergency on drug abuse. Rachel, you will recall that the number of times, I think I can count with my fingers how many times when you go through the papers or when you watch the telly that you will not hear that NDLA actually have arrested somebody, a group, a cartel, and whatever, especially when it comes to the issue of drug abuse. And the number keep increasing. We will recall that, I think, mid-year, where we saw the president also having more like a conference where he talked about the issue of drug abuse and how many of our youths are actually under it. It will actually surprise Rachel to realize that we're talking about from age 15 to about 65 years or 64 years. We're having the number of people that are under the influence of drugs is alarming, the number coming from the world, the UN. Talking about the issue of a lot of youth are getting involved. And then it was scary because when I was looking at the report coming from the UN, it happened that when you come back to Nigeria, we're talking about the Southwest have the largest number, about 4 million or so of them, talking about out of the, okay, I want to get the number right, out of the 14.3 million Nigerians are between the age of 15, we're having about over 4 million coming from the Southeast, even though it's trying to check zone by zone. And then it happened that most of the drugs, or the drugs that have been abused most, is the cannabis. And you and I have always seen one day after another NDLA are doing that. And then the Senate felt that it is imperative that the federal government do something about this, because when we keep saying that we have the human power to move Nigeria further, but then we're having this number actually under the influence of drugs, then you know that it calls for serious attention, because we cannot talk about progressing as a country when we do not handle the issue of people who are under the influence of drugs. If we're having one accident after another, most of the times about 4 to 10% of those accidents are being as a result of under the influence of drugs. And I think it is important, even though it might look as if it's too late, but then I think it actually is never too late. I mean, the right time is right now for the Senate to actually call on the attention of the federal government to look into the issue of drug abuse, because, Rachel, you cannot just pass any street without meeting somebody that have actually lost his or her mental mind. Why? Because he or she was actually addicted or under the influence of drugs. And I think it's really important that the federal government take this very seriously, or else in the next 2 to 3 years we will not have youth anymore running the government. When we are advocating that youth, it is our time to rule, and then we're seeing that most of the youth are under the influence of drugs, then it is important that the federal government call emergency so that things can be put in place before they get out of hand.
Yes, ever since the existence of substance or drugs, there have been the abuse of it. And it's never too late to start any fight or war. I mean, we're the least country with this much issues of drugs, trust me. Countries with more economic power have more cases of substance abuse, because the more money you have to consume drugs, the more there is the abuse of drugs. So we're even almost there when it comes, but it's not a competition thing, and it's not to downplay the issue of drugs. It's just to say that it's never too late at whatever point it is. It's not a fight, it's not a war that will stop, and until these things cease to exist, as long as they exist, it's going to be there. And if the government of Nigeria is declaring emergency on drug abuse, is definitely not on the abusers,
but on the drug itself.
On the drug itself. And for you to fight drug abuse, you have to cut the chain, because without supply, there is no abuse. It's the availability of drugs that makes it an abuse substance. If there is no alcohol, nobody will abuse alcohol. If there's no cocaine, nobody will abuse cocaine. If it's not available, nobody will abuse it. But as long as there is a supply of that substance, it's going to be abused. and then the quantity of its availability also determines the quantity of abuse.
Rachel, I wanted to add up while you keep, when you're talking about availability, part of the thing the Senate said, because I want you to put up together while you expand shade on this issue of substance abuse, is the fact that even without the availability of drugs, youth have results also cracking, where we see them cracking, talking about suckaways to inhale, using of dungs coming from cows, just in a way to create something. So right now, how do we then fight it? If we are saying that, okay, cutting down the chain is talking about let there be no availability of all of this drug, but then we are seeing people going to the, well, how will I call it, extreme level to make sure that they have something to keep. There was a time where we're talking about there are certain cough syrup that are not available, but you can't stop somebody from getting the cough syrup. So how then do we now fight all of those things? Because even without the availability of the substance, people have a way of creating something that will keep them high, if that's the word we would like to use.
Well, Sarah, for the case of suckaways and then any cow dumps and all of that, is someone who have started abusing one substance. That's not their starting point. And they get the same feel they get from this suckaway. So when they've been cut off from the supply of what they started with, they find alternative in most cases, and then it's kind of rare. It doesn't change the fact that it's available, but it's from one substance to another. Some people outgrow certain substance, and it's almost like they can't get the satisfaction they need from this certain substance, and then they move to something higher that can replicate what they are trying to feel concerning it. And that is why I believe it's all about the source. Of course, we can't say we will stop cows from doing their business, and we can't say we won't have a suckaway. But then what led to this person getting to this stage, that is where what we need to cut. And of course, is the supply. And when you give the statistics of the Southwest having this, and it's cannabis, they grow it, sell it. And no wonder they have it. And this is where the government needs to step in and cut it, because down here in our region, the climate is not humid enough, because to grow cannabis is a little bit difficult. It takes time, and it needs a particular kind of environment, weather exactly, and we don't have it down here. So it's easier to grow it at that side, because they do grow it a lot. And no wonder when it comes to statistics, they are higher in number. So it means for you, as the government of Nigeria, to fight drug abuse, you have to cut down whoever is farming it. And also when it comes to things like cocaine and heroin, we don't really have the ingredients to create them here. So it's more about smuggling. So you have to declare a war on struggling, because we don't have enough, all the crystal meth and all of that. We don't have the raw materials for it here, and we don't even have labs. We don't have that kind of resources here. So that one is clearly as a result of smuggling into the country. So you look at every kind of drugs that are out there that are being abused, and then you cut down the chain of supply. You make it completely unavailable, and then that is where we can start seeing that even if you want to abuse drug, is not available for you, and then we will be able to control these minutes. I believe it falls back to supply on a lot, and whether we like it or not, there's a lot of corruption in play, and it makes it really difficult. But then I just hope that we have a system that is willing to fight corruption, because we have leaders who are involved in this. We have leaders who are also drug abusers. We have people in key positions that are struggling with substance abuse of all kinds. And then, I mean, are they ready to fight it? Because they also see the need, that it hasn't done good to them, and also the generation coming after them is not doing good to them. And I just hope that we would come to that balance and that point where we have people in power that are willing to fight this, and then we will start seeing some results.
You know, one thing I love with what the Senate said while they were bringing out this bill was the fact that a lot of celebrities, a lot of politicians, just like you rightly stated, are under the influence of drugs. And so sometimes from where you are at certain lifestyle, and then before you realize it, you get involved in all of this and get addicted. And one key thing about the issue of drug abuse is the fact that we cannot rule out drug abuse from crime, because we always work hand in hand together. Because once you don't have the money to get the drugs, you get involved in crime, you rob somebody so you can get, because over the time we've seen that most time all this kidnapping we keep having, part of the things that are being required by the kidnappers are mostly drugs. Aside the money, they also ask you to bring in drugs for them to continue doing whatever they want to do. So just like we said, I think it's really, really important that this should not just be the responsibility of the federal government, but the state government, the local government. What can you do? Just like you rightly mentioned, the Southwest actually have that, because they whether everything makes it conducive. I mean, over the year, we've seen people who have even gotten to the point of swallowing some of those drugs just to smuggle it into the country. And we've seen each time, even though the government is actually applauding the NDLE, but then it seems as if for every effort they are trying to put, it's being rendered useless by some people who find a way out of this. So just like you said, this is a synergy, not just NDLE, but we see the custom getting involved. We see whoever, NGAs, various agency coming together to see the fact that we need to put our hands together, because this is a common enemy. It's not peculiar to a particular part, because believe you me, even in the North Central, where we are saying that the weather is not conducive, we're still having statistics being owned there. I mean, like part of the Northeast, we're having about 10.1% of them being involved in all of this. So whether we like it or not, every zone in Nigeria have been or is still being affected by drug abuse. So this is a collective effort, and we hope that the federal government will pay attention to this bill being brought by the Senate, and I hope that we are all ready. The federal government, the state government, and even the local government, everybody is ready to get the work done. So we hope to see that they will do just what they are expected to do. Well, Richard, I think we have to call, draw the curtain here. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Sally.
And thank you to our viewers and supporters for keeping the day with us on Nigeria Now. Until we come again tomorrow, do have a blessed day ahead.